Hey, what's going on guys? Shane here. Thanks for checking out the channel. So today I wanted to talk about Godfall, specifically its combat elements and weapon types that will be used in the game. Just a little bit of background info. Godfall is a next-gen game from Counterplay Games and Gearbox Publishing. I think of it as sort of a mix between Monster Hunter and Borderlands. The game is set to release on the PlayStation 5 and Epic Games Store this November 12th. You can already place pre-orders for the PC version of the game, with PS5 pre-orders coming soon at the time of making this video. This game was one of the first confirmed games for the PlayStation 5, and when I first saw it, I was super excited about the look of the world, the characters, and the first weapon shown. The game is set in a high fantasy setting, split into the realms of Earth, Water, Air, Fire, and Spirit, where we take the role of a Valorian knight to prevent a major apocalyptic event. We will have suits of armor called Valor Plates, each with their own abilities and buffs, along with 5 weapon classes to select from. These weapon classes include the longsword, dual blades, polearm, two-handed warhammer, and two-handed greatsword. From what has been confirmed so far, we'll be able to equip 2 weapons, one of each type. Valor Plates and augments can also be equipped to customize how each character class plays out. As for combat, technical producer Dick Haney recently released a blog post on the PlayStation blog detailing some of the combat elements of the game and the functionality of each weapon type. I'm going to share some of that information here today. Starting off with what I think is going to be my main weapon, the two-handed greatsword. The post from the PlayStation blog states, "Like Warhammers, the Valorian greatswords require the incredible strength granted by your Valor Plate to properly wield. Greatswords exist to give knights the striking power of the Warhammer, but the precision of a longsword. Depending on the weapon, these swords are just as capable of smashing as they are of cutting. Your greatsword has a charge bar that fills whenever you hit or are hit by enemies. The charge gradually empties over time. While the bar is red, you can perform either of the greatsword's unique weapon techniques. The first technique at your disposal is one that launches you forward in a whirlwind, hitting nearby enemies. The second technique requires more precision as you aim and launch your sword to deal damage to enemies in its path. To me, the second technique sounds sort of like the axe throw from God of War, where it damages enemies as you throw it and call it back. The next weapon that we have up is the polearm. The polearm, as it applies to Valorians, encompasses a class of weapons with a long reach designed to keep enemies at bay. Because the Valorian martial style is predicated on attack, polearms are typically used to drive opponents back with their superior area of control. The polearm is a fast precision weapon with lots of thrusts and aimed stabs to deal high damage to a single threat. Beyond your normal light and heavy attacks, polearms have a charge bar that builds over time. When the bar is blue, you can perform one of 2 weapon arts. Use your first weapon technique to jump quickly forward and perform an area of attack slam that deals moderate damage but gets you in the middle of the fight and staggers nearby enemies. Your second technique is a powerful javelin throw. This attack is perfect for precision strike from a distance. Aim it at an enemy's weak point to inflict massive damage. The next weapon on the list is the mighty warhammer. The blog post reads as follows. Because Valorians are frequently outnumbered or outsized on the battlefield, warhammers were developed to take advantage of the strength given to the wearers of the Valor Plate. These heavy-duty weapons smash through the hardest armors and scatter multitudes of smaller enemies with each strike. Wield the warhammer to inflict slow but big area of effect blasts as part of its standard combos. Outside of your normal light and heavy attacks, warhammers also gain charge over time. You can gain charge faster by attacking enemies. When the charge is completely full, you can perform one of 2 weapon arts. The first is a massive energy discharging slam in an area around the player. Your other option is to slam your warhammer to send a directional shockwave that deals bonus damage at the end of its travel. Personally, I've never been into warhammers. I know a lot of you guys like them, but I've always been more of a speed over power type when I build characters in these types of games. But now we're going to talk about a weapon that I'm pretty sure is going to be my secondary, and that's going to be the dual blades. So from the blog post it states, dual blades, as the name suggests, are a pair of light, agile weapons excellent for making quick work of soft, vulnerable enemies. You can combo quick slashes with 4 consecutive light attacks, or hit hard with the heavy blade cyclone. As you build up charge over time with the dual blades, you're able to activate Inner Focus, a special ability that buffs attack damage for a brief duration. Another signature move of the dual blades, Mortal Coil, will have you throw your blade into an enemy and yank them towards you, closing the distance. So yeah, I think dual blades are definitely my sort of weapon. During Monster Hunter, I'd mostly run dual blades or longsword. In Warframe, it would be dual blades or the Galatine Prime, which has a similar moveset from what I've seen to the great swords in Godfall. This final weapon is also very interesting. So the blog states, the longsword, a balanced, versatile weapon for a wide variety of enemies. Not unlike the dual blades, the longsword can also string together 4 light attacks, but stands out with a heavy attack finisher to put a devastating exclamation point at the end of your combo. The longsword has 3 signature moves. Spectral Flurry is a heavy damage dealer that can't be interrupted by foes. Spiral Technique works best to take down a number of enemies lined up in a row. Shield Uppercut works only if your timing is just right at the end of a longsword swing. A flash of white signals your brief opportunity to land a violent blow. So those are the 5 weapon types and how they play. Now we're going to talk about some of the combat techniques in Godfall. The first up is exploiting enemy weak points. The blog post reads, Valorian Knights can use their Valor Plates to reveal hit locations and vulnerability of their enemies. This allows skilled knights to take advantage of the imperfections and weaknesses of an otherwise daunting foe. An enemy's weak point will typically reveal itself after they attack. There are also a few additional unique triggers for weak points that you will find while you play. With weak points, we want to reward players who approach the game with patience and accuracy. Once an enemy's weak point is revealed, you will need to aim for a direct hit to deal bonus damage. Additionally, there will be loot traits tied to some of the weapons that will give added benefits to hitting weak points. Example, healing, detonating, elemental explosions, etc. Next up, we move on to breaching. As you fight your way through the world of Hyperion, you will come across heavily armored enemies. You will need to breach these enemies in order to do effective damage against them. The most effective way is to hit them with a heavy attack and follow up quickly with light attacks. Using heavy attacks on their own can also be effective. Once you fill up the enemy's breach bar, the enemy will be stunned and become vulnerable to takedowns. So, speaking of breach points, in a recent interview with Arex, technical producer Dick Haney said that we'll be able to customize our Valor Plates to increase their breaching ability, which sounds like something Warhammer lovers are going to enjoy. Up next, they talk about finishing moves called Soul Shatter. Every Valorian Knight learns to affect their opponent's internal Ethereum, the very fabric of their spirit. As Valorian Knights strike their foes, they make small rents in their enemy's spiritual fabric. Then at the right moment, a powerful strike is delivered that will turn these fractures into a large internal detonation. When performed correctly, this move will utterly destroy a being. Soul Shatter finishes are a fantastic way to dispose of your enemies in your path. As you deal damage to an enemy, you accumulate a bank of damage that can be consumed with a heavy attack. If that bank of damage is larger than the enemy's remaining health, you will Soul Shatter the enemy. Soul Shatters also serve as an additional trigger to traits you may have on individual pieces of loot. As you finish your enemies off with the Soul Shattering blow, you will see various payoffs as you utilize those triggers. In addition to the already beautiful explosion of your enemy, you may see additional payoffs such as shooting elemental projectiles from the shatter, triggering secondary explosions, and more. The blog continues on detailing polarity attacks next. As you utilize both your weapons at your disposal, there is a bonus for players who swap their weapons mid-battle. Players can charge up a polarity attack by hitting enemies with their weapon. When fully charged, a weapon swap unleashes a shockwave that boosts your weapon damage by 20% for 30 seconds. The potential shockwave of the damage can be increased as you level up specific player attributes. Players who want to maximize their damage completely will find themselves swapping between weapons mid-combat. Similar to weak points, Soul Shatter and Polarity Attack are tied to loot effects. A simple example is increasing the damage from the shockwave or increasing the charge rate. Some examples of exotic loot traits you may find include inflicting an ailment whenever you use your Polarity Attack, or applying a debuff on enemies hit by the shockwave. Man, honestly, just talking about all this stuff is getting me super hyped for this game. By the way, if you plan on getting Godfall or you'll be interested in checking it out before you make the purchase, be sure to tune into my channel as I'm going to be covering any and everything Godfall up until the launch, where I'll be streaming Godfall gameplay day one on PS5. So back to the post, we have information on the shield and its mechanics. Shields are made for offense. Sure, you can use your shield for defense, but it is an equally capable offensive tool. Here are some ways you can utilize your shield to defeat your enemies. Parrying. You can test your reactionary skills in battle by parrying an enemy's attack. A successful parry right before an enemy attack lands leaves the enemy vulnerable for a short. Shield throw. Need to get an enemy out the way? Or maybe they're just too far across to fight from you? Hold L1 to aim your shield and then throw it at the enemy by pressing R2. Throwing your shield can damage and knock them down. Just remember that your shield throw has a short cooldown, so utilize it wisely. Stomach punch. Up close and personal and just want to knock your enemy off the ground? Once unlocked from your skill grid, players will be able to utilize the stomach punch with their shield to knock down enemies. Flat bash. Once unlocked from the skill grid, players can utilize a flat bash that can interrupt an enemy's red power attacks. Those are non-interruptible attacks, it says, and petrify the ones breached by it. Petrified enemies will be turned into obsidian that can be smashed into pieces across the battlefield. Shield ground slam. Once unlocked from the skill tree, players can perform a shield ground slam to cause area of effect damage. These attacks will also petrify enemies breached by it. Petrified enemies will be turned into obsidian and can then be smashed into pieces across the battlefield. Shield catch area blast. Once unlocked, give yourself room to breathe by causing a large shield shockwave. Press L1 right as your shield throw returns to release a blast of energy. Shield zoom attack. Want to get up close and personal with your weapon, but the enemy is just too far away? Once unlocked, press L1 right as your shield throw hits an enemy to dash quickly to their location and start swinging away. Yep, with these shields I can see some guys out there making some killer bills around that. The final bit of information has to do with the Archon Mode, which pretty much is going to be your ultimate ability tied to your equipped Valor Plate. The blog goes as follows. Archon Mode is the ultimate showcase of what your Valor Plate can do. We want players to discover and try all the Archon modes as they play. At a high level, you will fill up your Archon bar as you fight enemies around you. Once completely full, press down on both analog sticks to activate your Archon Mode. Alongside an ability tied to your individual Valor Plate, you will receive buffs that have triggers attached to them. Trigger those effects to immensely escalate your destructive potential. So there you have it. This is all the information we have so far on combat in Godfall. Well, all the official information anyway. Be sure to like and subscribe, as I'll be posting more Godfall videos over the coming weeks leading up to launch. Also drop a comment down in the comment section about what weapon combo you plan on rolling with and whether you'll be playing Godfall day one on PS5 or PC. I'll check you guys out in the next video. Peace.